Hi there, I'm the Rookie Woodworker, and today I'm going to show you how to make the easiest cutting board there is to make. And the best thing about this project is I'm going to do it out of my scrap wood, and it's going to end up looking like that. It's going to look like that. I'm listening. Oh wait, I'm the one talking. Yeah. It's going to look like that out of this. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so I picked out some pieces for a cutting board and I laid them out in the order that I think I'm going to go with. My shortest piece is 18 inches and the width that I'm going for here is about 12 to 13 inches. So I got 14 inches worth of wood laid out here. The reason I overshot on the width is because I need to joint all these edges and then I need to run them all through the planer and make sure they're a uniform thickness the whole way down the length of the piece. I also need to skim off a little bit off the top of this before I go gluing it together, and before I glue it together I'm going to joint the bottoms on all of these too so that the bottoms can lay flat on my clamps. That way I just need to run it through the thickness planer to flatten out the top and then do a little skimming on the bottom whenever I'm done before sanding, and things will be ready to go. Now the thickness I'm going for here, the thinnest piece I have is about 1 inch, so we're probably going to come in at about 15/16, maybe 7/8 thick on this board. Yeah, so that's the dimensions we're going for here. Alright, since I'm using scrap wood that's pretty much already ripped down, I'm going to get this show started over here at the jointer, and I'm going to scrub off some edges that make them perfectly flat. That way my glue joints look absolutely seamless. Again, if you don't have a jointer to use, with a little bit of practice you can get some decent joints off of the table saw. If you have both a jointer and a planer, what you want to do here is joint one side and then use the planer to get the other side. This way, if the jointer ends up working your piece to be thicker on one side and thinner on the other side, the planer will go ahead and take care of that for you. With the thickness planer over here, I'm not really targeting any specific width for any of these pieces. I'm just trying to keep them nice and random, and all I'm shooting for here is to smoothen them out. This one here is that piece that has a huge chunk that's just chewed out of the corner of the wood. So when I'm working this one through, it's going to take me quite a few passes to get this thing worked out, to get it down and get it smooth. But yeah, here in the end I'll show you what it looks like after running it through about a half a dozen times to get it thinned down. Perfect. These thinner pieces that you feed through these planers get a little bit sketchy sometimes. I don't like to go any thinner than 1/4 inch through this planer. The planer has a setting for 1/8 of an inch, but I don't like to go any lower than 1/4 of an inch because sometimes it'll chew it up and spit pieces out. Alright, so that did end up knocking us down to about 12 5/8 of an inch wide. It's not bad. Alright, so now we're to the point where we're gluing this thing together. It's a pretty exciting point because now things are coming together. Pretty much the whole way through this build I had no plans in mind for it. I pretty much just picked out my pieces of wood, and with what I picked out I had a dimensions goal to try to reach, and even that goal was pretty fluid. I gave myself an inch of width of wiggle room, and my length, yeah, pretty much just as long as my shortest piece is what I went with. So right here I'm just gluing these together in whatever order I felt like at the time it will look good. So yeah, it's that easy to do this board. You don't even need a plan. You just dive right into it and get it done. And then I'm going to scrub off all the excess glue with a card scraper. I end up having to do this a little more than what I should have to, and that's because I don't keep a wet rag out in the shop. With these easy peasy side grain boards, you can run them straight through the planer and it'll smoothen them right out and have them ready for sanding for you. And just like that, it's ready to trim the ends and send it for sanding. I like to use my cross-cut sled to make sure I have a perfect 90-degree cut for these ends. Now we're off to sanding. So for my process here, I'll start with 80 grit, and with that I'll go over everything, look for little nicks and bruises and saw marks, little defects that I did through my building process. And then I will cover it with a pencil line, and then I'll sand that pencil line off again all over the board. And then I'll switch to 120, and then I'll go back over the board again with another pencil line, and then I will go back through and sand that pencil line off again. And then I'll do that whole process over again with 240 grit sandpaper. The pencil lines is what I call my keep 'em honest lines. It makes sure that I do the process the correct way and go over every inch of that board the way I'm supposed to. Because when it comes to sanding, sometimes I really want to get lazy with it. Alright, so check this out. You do a project, it don't matter what it is, whether it's furniture or cutting board. In this case, we're working with a cutting board. And you sand it down nice and smooth, and everything's nice and perfectly smooth. But whenever you put your finish on it, whether it's polyurethane or some sort of oil or something, you go and feel it after you put your finish oil on it, it feels all prickly and stuff. Well, that's because your grain raised from the finish. So what we're going to do before we finish it is we'll get soaked cloth, and we'll go ahead and run that over our piece nice and lightly. We don't want to soak it up too much. Just wet it up, flip that over, wet it up again. And then we'll come back when this thing dries and we'll sand it again. That way, whenever you go to put finish on your piece, you don't have that problem. The grain has already been raised and sanded off. Finally, ready to put some oil in this thing. I use 100% mineral oil, and I get a good coating on it, and then I'll flip it over, get another good coating on the bottom, and I'll leave it sit on these little tiny shot glasses I use over top of some packing paper to make sure I don't make a mess everywhere. But then I'll leave this sit like overnight, maybe 2 nights or so, and just let that stuff soak in really well. But yeah, here's the finished piece. I really like how it turned out. And it's a super easy project, and I did it completely out of my scrap wood. I think I'm going to do more scrap wood projects because it seems like everybody has a problem with building up scrap wood and having nothing to do with them. So I'm going to do more of these, and I might make like a set of episodes out of it and call it like Scrap Attack or something like that. If you got a name idea, put it in the comments below, and I'll look over it and see what we can come up with. But if you like this build, hit that like button. And if you want to see more builds like this, hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so it lets you know the next time I post a video just like this one. Till next time, make something awesome.